The Detroit Lions are the favorites to win the NFC North. Is the world ending? Detroit hasn't won their division since 1993. That was 3 decades ago. As a matter of fact, the NFC North wasn't even a thing yet. It was the NFC Central. That hasn't been around since 2001 when I was, well, 1. If the Lions were to win their first postseason game since the 1991 season, this season feels like a pretty good time to bet on them doing that. And it's not just me who thinks that either. DraftKings currently has the Lions listed at plus 140. Yes, they're listed as the favorites to win the NFC North. Then the Vikings at plus 290, Bears at plus 380, and finally the Packers at plus 400. This could legitimately be the Lions' year. But first, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. The NFL season is officially here, finally. And I don't know about you guys, but my Sundays are gonna be just me sitting in front of the TV all day in my favorite team's jersey cheering them on. And this season, we've partnered up with DraftKings, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers an exciting way to join in on the action right now. New customers, just download the DraftKings app, use our promo code JDPROD, bet just $5, and boom, $200 in bonus bets hits your account instantly. So don't wait any longer. Get in on the game and download the DraftKings app right now. New customers who bet just $5 on any wager will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly, allowing you to stay in on the action and maybe use those $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays, where you can combine multiple bets from the same game together for a chance at an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state though, don't worry. You can still join in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a chance to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New users use promo code JDPROD, bet just $5 on any wager, and receive $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code JDPROD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Thank you again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back to it. This is only year 3 under Dan Campbell, and the Lions have come a very long way since hiring him. The last 2 head coaches in Detroit really couldn't be more different. Matt Patricia, in his 3rd season in Detroit, got the boot after an ugly 13-29-1 record in his time with the team. Campbell, on the other hand, has already won more games, by the way, and is expected to take his team to the playoffs. He's been a fan favorite in Detroit ever since he's taken over, and I'd have to imagine that a lot of that is because he was a tight end for the Lions from 2006 to 2008. And of course, he seems fiery and honestly a little bit crazy, and clearly that's resonated with his team. Now, his tenure in Detroit hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows. In Campbell's first season in 2021, the Lions went 3-13-1. Detroit started 0-8, and frankly, they sucked. In last season, it looked like the Lions were heading towards another shitty year. It started 1-6 and looked pretty ugly. Then something just clicked, and Detroit won 8 of their last 10 and nearly made the playoffs. It was a big turnaround, and now it's time for the Lions to actually break through and make the postseason, and they definitely have the roster to do it. It's funny, but the biggest part of the Lions offense is Jared Goff. He was essentially viewed as damaged goods at one point in time. He was not only blamed for the Rams' shortcomings, but then was traded away for Matthew Stafford. At the time, it seemed like the Rams were trading him really to get rid of that contract, but it turns out that the Lions actually wanted him, and it's really turned out great, not only for him, but for the Lions as well. You could even argue that last year was the best season of Goff's career. He ended up with 4,400 yards and 29 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions. I know other people view Jared Goff as this short-term solution to the quarterback problem in Detroit, but I personally look at him and see a talented guy who can take his team to the playoffs and maybe even win a game. But even if you don't believe that, lucky for him, he's got the talent around him to do so. Since Dan Campbell's became the head coach for the Lions, they've drafted 5 different players in the first round, and all should be really important this season. Detroit did make a bit of a shocking pick at 12th overall at this past draft when they took a running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. He was incredible in college. His last year he played at Bama, he was fantastic, but he was also a dog at Georgia Tech for 2 seasons before that, and really since Calvin Johnson, nobody's really been that good at Tech. There's a lot of excitement for what he can bring to an offense and what his game looks like, and that's why I took him for my fantasy team. but it will be interesting to see what exactly the split in the backfield is going to look like. The Lions gave David Montgomery a 3-year, $18 million deal, and that surely wasn't by mistake. I think he's going to have a real role in the Lions offense, and he's getting paid like it. Detroit knows what he's capable of. He rushed for over 800 yards in all 4 years he was with the rival Bears, and Montgomery even had his moments of being really valuable catching passes out of the backfield. The Lions' passing attack should be pretty good. The number one is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's proven to be one of the best wideouts in the league. Last season was his second year in the pros, and he had 1,100 yards. Then the other two starters to at least begin the season are Marvin Jones, who's back in Detroit after he had his best years with the Lions, and Josh Reynolds, who had almost 500 yards a year ago. See, that's probably not how the wide receiver core is going to look like come the halfway point of the season. The Lions took Antoine Green out of UNC in the 7th round at the draft, but the real guy to watch may be Jameson Williams. He's suspended to start the year for gambling, but once he gets back, he should definitely get a bump up into the lineup. He already didn't really play as a rookie because he was still rehabbing a torn ACL that he suffered in the national championship when he was at Alabama. Still, the Lions took him in the first round because he was just that good in Tuscaloosa in 2021 after transferring from Ohio State. Then at tight end, the Lions have a new face in town. They traded away TJ Hawkinson last season and ended up using a very high 2nd round pick on Sam Laporta. He was a beast at Iowa. Yes, another Iowa tight end. He managed to record 657 yards in an offense that had less than 2,000 passing yards all year. I think he's the real deal, and he's a hell of a blocker too, which is really just a bonus because the Lions should have a really good offensive line this year. The big name on the line is really Penei Sewell. He was Dan Campbell's first draft selection. He ended up being a Pro Bowler last season and looked great. Still though, the best guy on the line was probably Frank Ragnow, who's one of the best centers in the league. Then at the other tackle spot opposite of Sewell is Taylor Decker. Then at guard, the Lions have Jonah Jackson and an important returner, and stay with me here if I can say this right, like please forgive me, Halapoulivaati Vaitai. I really hope I said that right. They called him Big V when he was with the Eagles, and he's entering his 4th year in Detroit, but didn't play at all last year because of a back injury. Getting him back should be big. The Lions offense was really exciting and good last year, and should be again for sure. What wasn't as good was the defense, but at the very least it should be better now. One of the big newcomers on the Lions defense is Jack Campbell, who was just taken 18th overall after his time at Iowa. He'll get the start at weak side linebacker and hopefully make a much needed impact there. At middle linebacker is Alex Anzalone, and then Derek Barnes, a 2021 4th, will be at the strong side. Now, the biggest name to watch on the Lions defense is the guy that they took last year 2nd overall, Aiden Hutchinson. He had 9.5 sacks as a rookie and should only get better from here on out. Then opposite him will be Charles Harris. He actually had 7.5 sacks in 2021, but then missed most of last season with a groin injury. Then in the interior of the line, the Lions have Aleem McNeil and Broderick Martin, who they just took in the 3rd round out of Western Kentucky. In the Lions secondary, the cornerbacks are fine, definitely better from last year. Cameron Sutton came over from the Steelers after being their best corner in 2022, and then Jerry Jacobs is expected to be on the other side of him. Detroit did also draft Brian Branch in the 2nd round too, who was really expected to be a 1st rounder. Finally, at safety, Kirby Joseph is slated to start, but I think one of the Lions' biggest additions this offseason was actually CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was actually really good last year in his lone season with the Eagles. The Lions' defense is still bad in comparison to the great units around the league, but it definitely shouldn't be total shit like it was last season. That improvement alone should make Detroit a playoff contender. A lot of what makes the Lions such an interesting possible postseason team is honestly just their division. It feels like the Packers were the kings of the NFC North for a while, and of course, now that Aaron Rodgers is gone, it leaves a big hole and a ton of questions. Even if Jordan Love is good, the wide receivers around him really aren't, and Green Bay has their issues. That's probably why they didn't win the division last season. The Vikings did. I know this sounds crazy to say, but people may actually be sleeping on the Minnesota Vikings a bit here. Yes, they lost Dalvin Cook, but the drop-off to Alex Alexander Mattison may not be as big as you think it is if you've seen him play in relief of Cook. Then Adam Thielen is gone, but Jordan Addison was just drafted and he could theoretically feast with defenses so worried about Justin Jefferson. Add in a pretty good quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and the Vikings may actually be good again. I truly think they're the team to watch if the Lions don't win the division. Then there's the Bears, who actually have better odds than the Packers to win the division. Chicago's been bad, but there's some hope after trading for DJ Moore and giving Justin Fields a real weapon. I can understand some of the excitement. He was great on the ground last year, but still, Justin Fields was so bad as a passer, I really just have to see the improvements there to believe it. I guess we just have to wait to see what actually happens from here on out, but there's a reason why the Lions are a big favorite. Lions fans have been in agony and despair for a long time. Like, I feel bad for you guys. It's been ugly, but hopefully things are about to turn around. It reminds me a lot of the Browns and how a lot of people just started to root for them just because they'd been bad for so long. Well, Cleveland ended up turning it around, even if they are kind of shit again. I really think that the Lions are next up. Detroit could seriously make the playoffs and even win a damn game. Now, are they slightly overrated? Yeah, but does it also kind of make some sense? Also, yes.